I think we're fine. Like, our voices carry. It's not
I'm very loud.
Yeah, I also can get loud, and that's just a thing.
You may have to just tone my existence down.
That's what editing is for. That's what editing is for. It's fine.
That is correct.
All right. And we are live! Welcome to Life Action Roleplay with Ryan Omega. It is the special Seattle edition, because I'm in Seattle for reasons. And I have a guest. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Tobias McCurry. You may have heard me before say other silly things on this podcast. And now I'm back.
Yay. And we're recording this on Valentine's Day, so he's my Valentine.
Excuse me, it is Sonic the Hedgehog Day.
Fine, it is Sonic the Hedgehog Day.
It came out today, and now henceforth, this is no longer a Hallmark holiday. It is simply Sonic Day.
Why today of all days? Is it because of the ring?
Can you think of anything more romantic than seeing Sonic and Knuckles the Echidna battling it out against Dr. Eggman?
Yes, but that would require some fan fiction and a different audience.
Yes, that's another podcast. We'll get back to you.
Do you have any shout-outs for people today?
Oh, man, I was not prepared for shout-outs.
Oh, I should have briefed you. That's
no, you don't need to brief me. Why do that? My mom's really great.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's real swell, but that's my short notice shout-out. Thanks, Mom.
All right. Your mom didn't screw up. Perfect.
I'm here.
My shout out is to a good friend of ours, Elisa Teague.
Oh, she's the best.
She is amazing. First of all, well put together, every single outfit. If you've seen pictures of her, amazing. But also just her mind for game design and being super prolific in making so many games, many things that you have or have not heard of. She has had a hand in many, many games.
She's a genius. It's obnoxious. And the most well-dressed genius, truly.
The most well-dressed. It's like, how is it fair to have all that talent in one single person?
It's illegal. I'm calling the police.
Fine. We will call the talent police.
I would like to offer a sweet shout out to my dear boy who you normally have here.
Yes.
Young Master Kai.
Yeah.
Who is far, far away from us. You've come to my turf here in the lands of coffee and rain.
Yeah.
And Starbucks.
So much coffee, man. Yesterday I had your brother's Nitro coffee, and then we had Starbucks, so I was seeing past time.
Good.
Yeah, it was perfect.
That's what we engineer here in Seattle, because we're too depressed.
Yes.
If you're depresso, drink some espresso. That's our gray skies problem.
Oh, God. Is that an actual phrase here in Seattle?
It is now.
God damn it. Okay. Also, a special shout out to Sin, who, you know, I love you dearly, and we think of you fondly, along with Kai, but you two are with your people, so that is all you get. Right now, it's Valentine's. It's Sonic.
Yeah, Ryan's Day. My Sonic date.
Yeah, that's right.
Take that, people.
But we love you. I also want to shout out to all of the Patreon supporters who have been behind all of the things for Live Action Roleplay, as well as...
I heard they're all beautiful.
They are all very beautiful. They're so beautiful. I will enumerate them right now.
Oh, yes, please tell me every single one of their names. I must know.
Yes. So I want to start off with the Eyes of Petra, or the Eyes of the World, who are like a major, major supporter of Blank Slate. So thank you so much for being involved with Blank Slate. To Talon Hack Bowler, to Aaron Ludlow, to Fei Liang, to Sam Sanchez, and to Twin Mask.
I love all those people, including the ones that are groups of people.
Yes. So, yeah, lots of groups of people. And what are we drinking today?
I found some rum.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what kind it is, but I found some, and I've got it. You, my friend, I see you're drinking straight vodka.
Yes. Very, very clear. At least it's not Everclear.
I mean, Everclear and I have had a few nights. No, you are having only the finest Pacific Northwest tap water.
Yeah. Yep, that's what I have learned from recording in the past that if I drink before recording a podcast and monitoring things are just more difficult to edit because I don't remember things like volume or sequence of actual questions and following things.
Are we worried about volume? I'm pretty loud.
No, volume as in I'm not talking loud enough.
Oh.
Because then I'll go, oh, no. It's like, oh, yeah, that's right. You can't listen to that on a podcast.
Speaking of our stupidness when it comes to editing and shenanigans like that.
Oh my god, I love your segues.
I feel like this segues quite good into our topic for today, or at least one of them.
Yes. Our topic today is, go ahead and announce it.
Doing the dumb.
How to do the dumb. And it's one of those topics that you would never expect to hear in a LARP, and yet it's actually
common vernacular.
It's common vernacular, and I realize that people don't actually know how to do it.
Yeah, so let's explain a little bit about what doing the dumb is in a LARP. Especially, you'll hear that phrase thrown around, and you'll hear that, and you'll be like, if you don't have context, you're just like, what are you talking about, you weird LARP people?
Yes.
So doing the dumb is explicitly going out of your way, in spite of what may be considered an exponential character risk, to, in my opinion, play the game. To go experience something a little wild, take some risks you might not normally, in order to seek the most enjoyment. The reason it's called doing the dumb is because, once more, high risk. You'll have a lot of people that are like, oh no, you shouldn't go do that dumb thing because you'll die. And it's like, nah, I want to play this game. I will find an in-game justification to do the stupid thing. Why? Because it's fun.
Yeah, it's very hard for players to want to think of LARP as a scenario to do the smart thing and in some ways to win.
Yeah.
It's very hard to let go of that idea because in real life you don't want to do the dumb, and therefore we're always almost programmed to be risk averse.
Yes.
So we don't want to take risks, but LARP is a space where you can take risks because those things won't really carry over into real life, and when they do, you know there are ways to manage that.
Yeah, LARP specifically being by definition, a safe place to explore conflict.
Yes.
Like, you can explore plenty of conflict in, I believe last time I was on here we talked about this, being able to experience things specifically that, you'd never do. I wouldn't pull a gun on someone in real life. That seems bad. But man, in a LARP, your kneecaps are kiss them goodbye. But I find another really big thing is people get very invested, and rightfully so, and attached to their characters. So, I mean, advice number one, don't if you can. There's a level of investment you have to have.
Right.
But being so afraid of potentially losing that, or like losing a life or something like that, being knocked down on your score in some way, will often, it'll prevent people from doing those ridiculous and fun things. And one thing I will often find is people want to go do, the dumb. And what I'll see is it's not just your investment, it's also others, which I found very interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because they'll try and stop you, because maybe your character means a lot to them, maybe you're in a faction, and they're really excited that you're not dead, but you're like, hey, I'm going to go on this, suicide run. Everyone's like, no, you're not. There's some responsibility we have as fellow LARPers to kind of justify and allow people to play. But you will often run into groups that are just really averse to letting you risk yourself as well. So not only do you have to get over your personal investment, the people around you have to yes and improv rule to allow you or find a justification to encourage that action.
I find that that's an issue with my Archduke in Twin Mask, because right now he's so he's kind of like at the heart of a lot of things in the game. Not necessarily into the governing of things, but he's just been around for so long with the history of things.
You're an encyclopedia of sorts.
Yes. So me doing the dumb is putting a lot of others at risk. And so I try not to do that with a character like that. However, I do have different ways where I do the dumb, which is my character drinks and therefore makes bad decisions.
The best thing I witnessed last game was the, God, what is the cart called? A rickshaw.
Oh, the rickshaw!
So I am literally sitting in the middle of this town, and Ryan is being drug around on a really bougie, comfy rickshaw, screaming at the top of his lungs that he's hallucinating and that he's flying.
Yep.
Which was probably the highlight of my event. Seeing Ryan go ham as this high-class politician who is currently a doofus in a rickshaw. It was quite good.
And to add to that, Michael Ferris liked this idea so much that he actually paid for the rickshaw ride. So I didn't pay for it at all. And then I had a dose of absinthe just before I went on, so I got to...
Fictional absinthe.
Fictional absinthe. So I got to pretend to hallucinate the entire way from one end of the gate all the way to the arena. So I arrived in the arena in class on this rickshaw, and I decided that I'm going to stumble out of it because I am not used to all of that motion and thinking, I'm on a cloud! I'm on a cloud! And just screaming that the entire way.
The entire way. And of course you'll see him like coming down the street and you're like, what the hell? Car? Is that? No, definitely is. Nope, yep, there he goes. Is he okay? Oh, no, he's fine.
And so that was a fun minor way to do the dumb without having to put other people at risk.
Yeah, not necessarily a high risk, high reward situation. That's more of a just like, I get to goof around in a way where this character now gets some contrast. It's like, yeah, they're a person, and yeah, maybe they just want to drink.
And there are some people who that's where their comfort level is.
Yeah.
Just like something really, really light. Another character that I play, Boss, which I haven't played him in a while. He's a half demon of sloth. And the reason why that was a character risk was because how would sloth work in a LARP that is very, very battle heavy, or at least buffer, where you're like passed out? Sure. And so for me, the risk was actually passing out in the middle of the battle.
Oh, no.
And John Bassett even saw that. And while I was hiding, I would actually lie down and I would go to all the people and say, I'm pretending that I'm dead. Shh, I'm gonna be dead. And I would actually, there have been times I actually napped in the middle of things because I was waiting in ambush for things.
And quote unquote ambush, let's be real.
Quote unquote ambush.
Yeah, you're gonna threaten them with your nap.
Yes.
Your sonic snore, if
My
you will.
sonic snore. But I also could throw lesser death. So,
yeah,
So, something that I could do.
Randomly throw murder at people. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. What's one risky thing, doing the dumb thing that you've done recently?
Yeah, I've been trying to think about that. Like, my life is constantly living the dumb, so it's very hard to pinpoint a specific instance. Normally, it's like, hey, here's a suicide run mission. You going? I'm like, yeah. That sounds like a great thing to do. Mm-hmm. But it's very difficult for me right now to like specifically pinpoint a moment. And as soon as we move on to a separate topic, I'm going to think of it.
Oh, yeah. That's how it always happens.
It's 110% how it works. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll get back to that.
Yeah, we'll get back to
it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another way that people can do them, there's like two other ways that people can find that way. One of them is doing it on your NPC shift, if your game has one.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely going ham as an NPC. First off, improves the experience of everyone involved. Mm-hmm. 10-foot rule in LARP, make sure everyone 10 feet around you is having a good time. Mm-hmm. If you can do that as an NPC by acting just the fool, it's phenomenal every time. People who are super, even if they're over-invested in how ridiculous they're being, it is still fun. And it doesn't matter. It can be serious overinvestment. Mm-hmm. Like there's a difference between like the guy, you drop his HP points, he puts his hand on his head and walks away because now he's out of game, now he's dead, whatever. Right. And there's a difference between like I put a zombie down and now it's down, but it's like trying to gnaw at my feet or like reach out for my throat, and I'm like, there you go. That's good. Mm-hmm. There was a guy when I went down to Southern California for Dystopia. This poor guy on his NPC shift played 3 separate, obnoxiously involved characters. One of which being Kai's character's fanboy, which was beautiful. But he just completely, specifically that character, utter over-exaggerated everything there was about Kai's character, down to like that, hey man, I really need some like pomade, and like, just trying to like style his hair. He's like, man, I just want to be like Axel, like he's the coolest, he's like a road royal, they got a gang. I think I mugged every NPC he had. And I think his PC.
Oh no!
I don't remember. The guy just kept getting in my way. I actually re-met him again this past Twin Mask we had a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Or was that last weekend? Oh god, it was last weekend.
It was last weekend.
Ryan followed me.
Yes. I'm stalking Tobias, if you can't tell.
And he's like, hey, you're the guy who mugged me. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. Not only did you mug both of my NPCs, but you also mugged my character in the same day. I was just like, I don't remember that, but that sounds like me. Did you have fun? He's like, yeah, it was great. I'm like, oh, thank God. But yeah, that investment in an NPC role, even just whatever you're doing, I don't care if you're a merchant who's really eccentric about selling his goods. I don't care if you're a zombie that just won't die. Mm-hmm. Just putting that overacting, especially into an NPC role, because there's not like repercussions of what your behavior really should be most of the time.
Right.
So playing a stage character, very exaggerated and pronounced, is memorable. Yeah. It's fun. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, really, it boils down to it's fun. You're goofy and over-exaggerated. That's what you want out of a theatrical experience. Yeah. And this is what that is. Mm-hmm. So, certainly having that, like, really eccentric snake oil salesman, just, like, really hype about his product. It's probably piss in a bottle. But he's really hype about selling it. Are always the interactions that will breed the most, like, memories out of an event, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think doing the dumb in that way is definitely, like, the pinnacle of NPC excellence every time I see it.
What are some good tips for people wanting to do the dumb, but they might be afraid to try doing the dumb?
I find that, I mean, number one, it's a game. You can let go. Number 2, you're at a LARP. Are you afraid of judgment? Well, you're at a LARP, so we should be pretty free of judgment. We've already hit LARP. Look, man, the only thing worse is improv theater. I've been there.
It gets surreal when I meet D&D players who said, I can't LARP because it's too nerdy for me. And I'm like, really? They've told me this.
I know. It's my favorite thing. It's just like, yeah, LARP's a little too nerdy for you? Hey, man, you got your D20s on you? Hate to tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a little more back on topic. To expand on, remember it's a game, you're there to play, you're there to experience, and you're there to have fun. If you're not taking advantage of the fun that you can have at the event, why did you pay the ticket cost?
Yeah.
Like
or the time, or even the time cost, even if it's
why are you there? Like, just play, and be a little ridiculous, be a little over the top. If your problem is I can't find a justification for my character to do this, find one. Like, it's not hard to make an excuse, especially if you have any background, like you really like drilled a certain aspect of personality to drive motivations. It's not hard to find motivations, even if it's shallow. Like, I went there for the loot, or my dead sister was killed by rabbits and I have to go to the angry rabbit dungeon. Like, avenge her or something. Even if it's not the specific angry rabbits. It's making that excuse. It's finding that will to go. And if your friends are like, hey, don't do that, you can for lack of, I can't say that on a podcast. They can politely shove off. Or bring them along.
Actually, that's a good one. The thing is, if you're afraid to do the dumb alone, but you have someone with
get
you,
a posse.
If you get someone to do this with you, A, it's easier because now you know you're not alone. But B, if you get a posse, if you have like
Shenanigans gang.
If you have like 5 or 6 people doing this,
oh yeah,
you won't feel dumb doing it. It might feel silly, as in, wow, no one's going to expect this, but maybe that's a way to think about it. It's not so much I am doing something that is inherently not valuable, which is what we think of as dumb.
Yeah.
But me and a group of people are doing something that no one expects.
Yeah.
And if you project it that way, it feels like you're definitely playing a different game than what is standard. And that novel, innovative way to look at playing a game becomes more thrilling.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important aspect of doing the dumb, is not necessarily making a stupid choice, but I think it's really important to touch on doing what people don't expect.
Yeah.
Maybe the game has been working, the players have been working on a solution to a puzzle, and you're like, but if I hit this shiny red button, there's like a 75% chance the thing's going to be good.
Right.
Just hit the button. It's finding like uncanny solutions to what might feel like a solid single way to solve problem. Storytellers love creative solving. As we say in the business, nothing survives first contact with a LARPer, and that includes our plot, that includes our puzzles, anything. Nothing survives first contact. So as soon as you start throwing out creative and intuitive solutions, you're doing the dumb in a really rad way. So being able to, I know Jason at Dystopia Rising NorCal, our experienced designer, every time you think of a solution that he didn't think of, he rewards it. If he planned out his battlefield of what's going to happen, and he's like, these are all the outcomes, and you come out of left field and you're like, hey man, we're going to do this, and he's like, oh, awesome, yeah, let's roll with it. Very, very yes and attitude. It goes well almost every time. Yeah. Even if there's a drawback consequence, it's still cool. And then you get to experience the game in your own way, specifically. You created that solution. That's now your experience, and now what you have to remember. Which is, half the reason we do this is to create memories and escapism. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also with something like doing the dumb. If this is your first time at a game, I could understand why you don't necessarily want to do that. You're still trying to explore the world.
Sure.
There's no pressure to have to do that if you're already enjoying what you're doing, or if you're just exploring.
Yeah, things to learn.
Yeah, and and the other thing to think of is, for me, I always think of what is the worst thing that can happen, and I think that often prevents people from doing the dumb. But I can tell you a scenario where I played that half-demon Contaboss, and he did the dumb in a very bad way, where there was someone who was, I guess, a fire mage in the Guild of Academics, and they were trying to figure out, how do we get this guy out of there, because he is now strapped to the building and is going to threaten to blow everything up. My character decided to do the dumb.
Gave him a hug.
No, I turned into mist and decided to go into his body to try to possess him and leave. The moment I turned into mist and moved forward, he blew up the whole building, and a lot of things were destroyed. Now,
it was a good try.
Now, here's the thing. It sounds absolutely horrible. People lost a lot of actual lore. People could have actually been mad at my character. So when people think, what is the worst that can happen? What ended up happening as a result were people figure out, okay, that happened because Contaboss was not very smart. But they now have to figure out, okay, let's make the building stronger.
Yeah.
So they now invested in making a stronger building. They now had a different system of doing lore, so that was not all in one place. So they learned something from that. It did not take away from their experience. And now I have this really strange mark of, I blew up the building of the Guild of Academics. Yay! Whoops. And it's now an interesting story.
Yeah.
It may not be the best story.
Still a good story.
But still a good story. And, like, in the end, like, we're all about telling stories, and not everybody wins. Now, granted, I can understand people don't necessarily want to die.
Yeah.
In a game. So, yes, doing the dumb when you could put your hand on the nuclear bomb button, you are thinking about...
It's just a nuclear bomb.
It's just a nuclear bomb. And I get this, like, there is some level of consideration for others. Maybe one thing to think about if you are scared of doing the dumb is, how would this enhance someone else's roleplay?
Correct.
And, this way you do the dumb for things. But if you're doing the dumb just because you think you'll get a kick out of it, even if it screws everyone over, that's never usually fun.
Correct. You're playing a shared experience. You still want to, once more, 10-foot rule. Mm-hmm. Is everyone within 10 feet of you having a good time? Mm-hmm. Is everyone going to have a good time around you if you're just screwing everyone's life up?
Yeah.
The answer to that, by the way, is no.
No.
You were probably correct. Good job, listeners.
Mm-hmm.
It's also important to understand the potential negative ramifications that you may experience from someone out of character who is also invested. Mm. So, like, bleed happens. We've talked about it before. Mm-hmm. And just keeping in mind, are these the types of players that are going to potentially be upset over something like this? Mm-hmm. Everyone plays a different game. It's just nice to keep in mind.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say force it to dictate your actions, mm-hmm. but just in the back of your head, it's nice to be thoughtful.
Mm-hmm. And if we were to do that scenario again, I think the reason why I was able to also do the dumb was because the people around me at the time had no other solutions. And so, therefore, doing the dumb, in this case, was taking a risk because we didn't know what the solution was.
Yeah.
It wasn't everyone in the group decided to do a thing, and I decided to do the thing by myself, which was contrary to what everyone else was doing, mm-hmm. because that was dumb. It's like, I wouldn't, like, that's not enjoyable to me.
Yeah.
But in this case, doing the dumb was, we ran out of other feasible options,
hold my
and we
beer.
didn't. Yeah, it was a hold my beer because we didn't. Because we need to do something else that wasn't presented to us.
Hold my beer moments are my favorite thing in Dystopia Rising
mm-hmm.
for me.
Yeah,
just out of left field, random solutions. Like, I think occult stuff works this way. Let's try it. Mm-hmm. Might work. Might end up with Cthulhu. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
What are some good character concepts where you can do the dumb and you don't have to be afraid of people thinking you're a total idiot because it's something inherent in the role? I mean, that's a very strange question to ask, but there are certain things that you can do to almost alleviate doing the dumb because you're expected to be a little bit more out there.
So what do you mean by, like, character concepts?
So, for example, mad scientist.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, mad scientist is a really good one. Like, mm-hmm. Clearly they're going to do something wild mm-hmm. Because that's their job. Mm-hmm. I'm always a fan of the bard thirsty for story.
Okay.
Trying to collect random tales, be they good or bad, to write songs about. That
mm-hmm.
one's a quality one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if I do this, it's going to make a great song. But don't do that. Nah, then it's got to be a good song.
I like how it also involves the concept of listening to other people to get songs out of them. It's like, that's actually really, like, inclusive. So that's a really good idea.
It's not a ton.
I've noticed that I think sometimes the doing the dumb almost works when you're in some position of expertise, not necessarily an position of power.
Like just being the guy in town that knows the thing.
Right.
Yeah, oh, certainly.
Yeah.
So it's like, they all come to you for magic stuff. Mm-hmm. And half the time, the super magic guy is like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. But first I gotta do some dumb shit. Mm-hmm. Stumbles into magic portal. Hey guys, what's going on?
It could easily be like someone who is a priest or a cleric that heals people and will also heal enemies because, like, I don't want to see them hurt. Yes, is it one of those things that it wouldn't ruin someone's day, just more like that's just weird.
Yeah.
But it doesn't ultimately hurt anybody to do that. Now, if you do it, if you heal only your enemies and not your friends,
then you're just an enemy.
Then you're just an enemy. But if you decide that, I don't want to harm this person, so let's knock them down. And it's like, I'll just get them to be just weak. Like, it at least is taking into consideration something you're actually doing, but you also have a character motivation for doing whatever you're doing. So in that case, like sometimes being forthright isn't dumb. It's just a character choice that goes against the grain. And going against the grain isn't necessarily dumb.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what creates unique stories. Mm-hmm. You can go against the grain in the wrong ways.
Yes.
I mean, just breaking genre of the venue, things like that.
Yeah. Doing something that is really not safe, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also, once more, detracts from the experiences of others. Mm-hmm. So, like the thing we said to keep in mind earlier, just like, even if you're doing a sillier concept or an interesting concept to you, make sure it still fits in the framework of the world. Mm-hmm. But as far as, like, excuses and concept, anyone who is curious or thirsty for knowledge is always a prime target for doing the dumb. Because they'll do anything to learn, including stupid stuff. It's like, I need to know this knowledge. Well, to know that knowledge, you pretty much have to die. Okay.
Yeah. Or you need to go with the shady man. It's like, all right.
In the back alley? All right.
He's going to get me candy. And
is that a white van?
And I think it's interesting when you end up involving other people. Like, if I tell people I'm going into this white van, they're like, you shouldn't, because now you have this conflict that you can just totally roleplay out.
And then you can get excited about it and be like, come on, man, let's go in the white van. Come on with. It's going to be great. Suddenly, you're on the magic school bus to ridiculous plot. Welcome.
Yeah. And you can only, with some of these, you can only do ridiculous plot if you are willing to do the dumb.
But also it can be used as a very serious character point. Yeah. Like, we were talking about the guy who's known in town for X, Y, or Z.
Right.
I mean, that was my bread and butter for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But it was certainly an amount of, like, I don't know exactly how this is going to end, and it may be catastrophic. Would you like to go? It might fix a big problem. Mm-hmm. It might get us all dead. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, of course it scales. It doesn't have to be, it might get us all dead. It could be like, we might come out of this a little loony. Mm-hmm. So, like, you can scale your dumb. It doesn't always have to be high risk, high reward, or high risk, high reward of experience. Mm-hmm. You can also do it casually, just once more, just so long as you're thoughtful.
Yeah. And it's interesting that sometimes an action that is actual bravery, we describe it as doing the dumb, even though it's actual bravery. Cool. I still remember Mario Nintendo. I think the very first game of Dystopia Rising NorCal, where everything was on lockdown with the COA, and everyone was trapped upstairs, and Marion kind of decided that because the newbie area was the one that was like under that was trapped, he decided that he would actually run. Escape all the COA and just warn everybody, hey, this group needs help. Mm-hmm. And in my first thought is it was doing the dumb, because I'm going out there risking myself to be caught. I managed to stay out for an hour without getting caught, and by the time I returned, like they had been like shooed away or dealt with. And I just remember like someone like N, I think, like came up to me and gave me a big hug. It's like, they got your message. Okay. They got your message, like, you did it. And I was like, oh my God, in my brain, it's like, that was doing the dumb, but it was also probably one of the best moves I've ever made.
Oh yeah, and what I liked about that game specifically was when you went out and there were patrols, you were playing Metal Gear Solid.
I was.
You're stealthing around corners like, oh man, is there a patrol? Oh man, super stressful. Like sneaking around bushes and stuff. Just like if I get caught, I'm a dead person.
Yeah, because there were like 40 people.
Oh yeah,
like out
on patrol.
On patrol. Yeah, sometimes in a massive group.
It was not easy. We didn't make it easy for you.
No, but I do remember actually just hiding through bushes, like waiting for like the right time when people would turn and then
skitter across the street.
Skitter across the street, or like I would see people who were on the second floor kind of going like signaling to me like when to go, and it was the riskiest thing like just LARP wise I ever did, but it was so rewarding when it was done.
Oh, for sure. And also gives you that nice little adrenaline kick. You're like, oh man.
It also secured me a reputation like very early on in game.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
so now you have this connection to help others and interact with other people you might not normally, which I think is important as well.
Yeah. So if doing the dumb sometimes for people like it means doing the brave thing, you know, like you may not be as successful as I was, but even if you did the thing and you fell, and
that bard's still going to write a song.
And when you go to afters, you can talk about it and people are like, oh my God, what happened?
Yeah.
Like you get to have an amazing story.
Yeah, you now have an experience that you can share.
Yeah. And doing the dumb is making awesome experiences happen because you tried something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to segue too much from this.
Sure.
But, you know, I am in the presence of a prop maker.
Hello. The same person. Hi, I'm still Tobias.
Yes, you're still
Tobias.
Tobias.
Let me grab my prop maker hat.
Okay.
Why is it made out of foam?
Because foamies are the best hats.
You're not wrong. Yes, I own Springfield Studios, is my small business based out of Seattle. And I make live-action role-playing props. Primarily, my bread and butter is boffer weapons. But I also do, like, armor and some costume design stuff. And, yeah, that's my gig.
How did you get started doing it?
So, effectively, I started Dystopia Rising, I think, 7 years ago. And I wanted to make my own weapon. Because I didn't want to deal with a non-immersive, like, Amp-Guard black stick with foam and cloth. I wanted something that looked decent.
Right.
Granted, I was a new crafter, so that was a project. But, you know, some contact cement, Harbor Freight floor mats, and a lot of sanding later, I had myself a machete. Turned out okay. And that's when I kind of started, like, just making weapon props. First for myself, then friends are like, oh, hey, I want a thing. I'm like, yeah, sure, cool. Worked out in my buddy's garage for a bit. He had enough tools, it worked out. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into specifically the LARP stuff. And that got successful enough over time, and I got enough practice in that was actually the reason I started the company specifically, was because of all of the weapon props I was cranking out. I've done costuming and cosplay and armor making and all that fun stuff for a very long time, but not necessarily as a business. So I wasn't thinking I would need a company or to make anything profitable until I actually started gaining a lot of traction very quickly as a crafter. So that was wild.
Was there a specific moment where, like, after doing this as a hobby, that you realized, oh, shoot, I could actually turn this into a business? Like, is there a particular event where you realized this?
I wouldn't say there was a specific event, but the requests just kept coming in. And I was learning rapidly because I was getting so much work. And when that really picked up, I was like, okay, I suppose I need to start reporting this on taxes. Time to register a business. So that's mainly when that happened. There wasn't a specific turning point. It was just a ramp up in volume.
Is there a favorite piece that you like doing?
My favorite piece that I've made was for myself, of course, because I get real excited about my own stuff. Is I made so my first weapon was a machete, and I created, when I got access to a laser cutter in Pennsylvania for the first time, learned how to use it, and made myself a new machete. And man, that thing lasted me years.
Damn.
And it was sweet. It wasn't anything too fancy, but it was super practical. Super light. The thing's a lightsaber. There was no weight to it. And because we run a lightest touch game, it was very good for me. But it was really clean. I was really happy with how it came out. And that was when I really first saw, like, what I could do. And that's what set me forward on feeling that I could do it more professionally.
Can you take us through a process of from concept to execution? Like, how do you go about making a weapon?
Certainly. It's a bit of a process, as one could imagine. So I do have a laser cutter now. I used to not. Originally, I would just kind of sketch out on some foam what I wanted as far as like a weapon shape. These days, I'll look at reference photos of weapons that I like, or get an idea, some inspiration, and then start designing in CorelDRAW, which is a CAD program. What I want. So I can look at the various blade shapes that exist around. I actually recently made a 1.5-hand broadsword for myself, which I threw at you earlier.
Yeah, that looked great, and I can't believe how fast you work.
Yeah.
That's the thing
about
that
4
surprised
hours.
me. Yeah.
Not including dry time. Including dry time, because it is cold in Seattle. So yeah, I find some inspiration. I start designing. If there's any graphics that are relevant to the character or what I'm doing, I made, like recently with the broadsword, I put like magic runes on it because it's supposed to be like a spell blade. I put my character's house crest on it. And I added some fullers, made the full sword in Corel, and then I break that down so it fits on my laser bed. So, for example, this sword, the blade was 30 inches, my bed is 27, so I had to do the blade in half, and then I was able to glue that part together to make the full blade. So it comes out in pieces. You pull it off the laser cutter, and then you begin the great gluing. Depends on the weapon size. I'll use either fiberglass rod for my core, like 5/16, or I'll use about 1/2 inch diameter. It's called epoxy wound tubing. Pretty strong stuff. And I will proceed to kind of Lego it together. It comes out very blocky because all the laser cut lines are straight. So you kind of, at that point, have the blank of your sword. It's the shape it needs to be, and it's got the engravings you want, but that's the beginning. You glue it to the core, and then you can take it to the sander. Sanding, of course, you bevel your edges. You make the blade portion. You begin, like, looking at the finer details of the sword as far as, like, I have a 4-inch belt sander and I have a 1-inch belt sander. What am I going to use to create the blade? Well, probably the 1-inch. Well, there's this one tiny crevice. Okay, well, let's get a Dremel or a 1/2-inch belt sander. So you go sand it down. You make sure it's all where you want it. Then this is also probably about the time I start making the pommel. I use wooden handles. So I'll drill out this is when I'll start drilling out the center for the core and all that jazz. So it's sanded, it's pretty much ready to put together. At this point, I will either start putting it together, like the handle, epoxy it in, or I will go straight to sealing. I use leak seal. A lot of people use Plastidip. Some people who have more money than me use latex. So the weapon gets sealed. Few coats of leak seal, and I'm generally happy. Before that, I skipped a part. After you sand it, I do detailing as far as cuts and nicks, like with a heat tool, or like a hot knife. I will occasionally take a blowtorch to some foil and press it up against metal, which gives it a really nice divot effect.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it gives texture, it gives depth. So I do all of the structural detailing after the sanding. be they scratches or whatever. I do a lot of post-apoc weapons, so everything is rusted and burnt to hell and practically ruined. Which is nice, by the way, because when you screw up, it's just genre. So that's why fantasy weapons are hard. So anyway, go to the ceiling, dries. That's when I start painting. I'll generally, most weapons, I'll just do I'll dry brush and paint silver on the blade. I use Citadel paints from Games Workshop. They get really good coverage, and I like them. Are they the best? Probably not. Do I like them? Yes. So I'll start with the silver, and then I'll go in and see if there's any, like, detailing on different metals I want to do. Maybe the hilt's going to be copper, maybe the hilt's going to be gold, a different metallic, maybe it's wood, who knows. And then I'll go in with technical paints, so this is where I'll do rust, this is where I'll do blood, this is where I'll do oxidization of copper, things like that. So I do all that. If I haven't already, I'll epoxy the sucker onto the handle. 2-part Gorilla epoxies, perfectly fine. Let it sit, and my sword's pretty much done. You can seal it afterwards with frog juice is really good. It's a spray. It comes in a can, but I don't like waiting 2 weeks because I'm impatient. I've also heard that clear leak seal works really well, but I have not used it yet. But most of the time, honest to God, I don't have to clear coat a lot of my weapons. The paint job stays pretty pristine even through use. But I mean, it depends on the project and what it's being used for. So that is pretty much the gamut of the process.
What is one thing that you learned in the process of making a weapon that you wish you knew earlier, or has never actually been taught to you when looking at other examples, like, this has never been explained to me, so I had to learn through it?
Cheating with tools. Using tools for their unintended purpose. My favorite thing to do is use a drill press for everything.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not understanding, because that sounds weird.
So, all a drill press is just a motor.
Right.
So if I want to put, say, a router bit on it to carve a channel out for my core, just put a router bit on it. Is it a router? No. Does it work? Yes. Do I need to sand something in a really funky way? I can put a sand wheel on that drill press. You can even use it as a janky lathe. It is by far the most versatile tool in the arsenal. And using it for blatantly unintended purposes is my favorite.
Is there a design that you don't like doing? That sounds weird, but...
No, that's super legit. Long weapons are just a pain. You have to compensate for whip, and you're putting together this giant thing. So your Lego game is about 3 times longer.
So when you say compensate for whip, what does that mean?
So a weapon can whip from true, which is when you swing the weapon, it can be bendy, depending on your core.
Oh, okay,
so if your core isn't sturdy enough, it will bend when you swing it. So what you do generally is you compensate with a larger diameter core. So, like, most of my really long weapons, I'll go past half-inch diameter tubing. I will get a bigger tube, then I gotta make a bigger staff with a bigger channel. It's a good time. God forbid I have to ship it. That's the real curse of LARP weapon business is shipping.
Oh, yeah, because, like, all that transport. But luckily, as you showed me earlier, in some cases, your item is foam, so it's its own shipping material.
Correct. I mean, if I need to, I'll, pad the edges. The only thing I'm ever worried about in shipping is, something crushing it and it coring out for some reason. Never happened before. Do I think it will happen? No. But if I need to put some, bubble wrap around the tip or something like that, or the pommel, is generally the only dark fear. But otherwise, I mean, the thing's foam. What are you going to do, sit on it?
Yes, that's
yeah,
what it is. That's
fine. Do you know what foam's used for often? Sitting. I just happen to make swords out of seats, man. But yeah, no, they're relatively resilient. And I mean, people don't tend to treat them too badly. The biggest offense people will do, that I always tell them not to do, is shoving them in a suitcase. shoving a weapon prop in a tiny suitcase where it would not really fit.
So, like, you end up bending the...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that sounds weird. Like, why would you do that?
Because they have no sense of peace for their prop.
Okay.
They wish for it to live a terrible life, cored out and sad. The other thing people do often is just leave it in their cars when it's really hot and things like that. It generally won't ruin the weapon, but I mean, it's just safer to keep it in a decently... Like, it can be warm. Just don't put it, like, on the dash in the sun. That seems like a bad idea.
That doesn't sound like a good idea for anything.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's great for cookies.
Great for cookies, not good for puppies. Or this.
Yeah, that went dark. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's terrible for puppies.
Yeah.
We do not condone warm dogs. Hot dogs.
Hot dogs, yeah. No hot dogs here. What is the strangest commission you've ever received?
Oh, dear. That's a...
Like, I guess that could be a weapon or that could be anything. I'm just curious because you also deal with many things.
Yeah, that's a difficult one to think on. I'm trying to think of, like, the most obnoxious weapon. I mean, people, of course, wanted me to make, like, the Saints Row dildo bat, which I think is hilarious. Oh,
wait,
are you not familiar?
No, I don't know what this is.
So in Saints Row the Third, there's a floppy, giant purple baseball bat that is, in fact, a dick.
Okay.
It is called the Penetrator.
God, okay.
I generally am pretty adverse to making any dingalings, if you will, because I don't promote sexual assault.
Oh, God, okay. That took a turn, but yes.
Well, I mean, you're hitting someone with a phallic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my point of view.
Yeah. See, I didn't even think about that. I just kind of thought, okay, funny weapon. But you're like, yeah, sure.
It's also goofy, and I respect that merit, too. But also, like, I can see this going wrong in so many ways. I would need... I'll make a permit. Like, you're allowed to carry this because I know you won't be stupid with it. I don't trust that of people. I'm very jaded.
What's one weapon you want to make one day?
Oh, man. I really want to make a Khopesh. It's an Egyptian sword. It's got kind of a hook on it.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of the pain in the butt about it is I would have to make my own core, which is it's doable. I just don't have a ton of fiberglassing experience. But, I mean, that's just something I would need to sit and learn. But I want to make a really rad post-apocalyptic Khopesh.
Yeah. That just sounds really cool, but... It's not straightforward. Literally not straightforward.
Correct. I mean, that's the flaw of a lot of, like, you'll see cosplay weapons that aren't fit for, like, LARP stuff because they are built in such a funky manner that they don't have a straight core because it's got, like, fancy anime holes in the middle.
Okay.
So straight core is generally the way to go, which it gets a little tricky when you have to kind of make an illusion with it. So, for example, if I'm making, say, kukri, maybe I'm drilling into the handle at a diagonal angle. Maybe I've built the blade in such a way that the core extends mostly through it, but then has a drop to it. So it looks like it's bent, but the core is still straight. There's some fun tricks you can do. But yeah, it can get wild.
How much sword making or weapon making knowledge, like the actual creation of those things, go into the making of a foam weapon?
I have minimal. Like, I understand, like, different types of tangs. That's pretty much my experience. I've done a very baby amount of blacksmithing. But it is, like, I'm sure something translates, but it's subtractive. Subtractive.
Oh, subtractive.
Subtractive carving. Words are tough. So, I mean, it's far more like sculpting in a way. Subtractive.
I can see that, yeah.
Than it is, like, banging a piece of metal against an anvil forever.
Yeah, because, like, one you can mold. The other one is if you take off too much, you can't do anything with it, or you have to. It has to be, or it has to be something else.
I mean, you so remember I was saying that it looks genre if you screw up? Sometimes it's too genre, and you have to unscrew it up. So what generally happens then is I've done patch jobs where I will literally take another, like, block of foam, put it on there, and then sand it so it looks flush. either that, or you'll add wonderful dystopian detail on top of it. Maybe it needs more hardware detailing. What's that? You needed a copper strap over the giant hole? Perfect.
That reminds me, like, how do you get all of those nook and cranny details that you do really, really well in your prop weapons?
Define nook and cranny.
So, for example, I think one of the swords that I saw today had, like, it had scales of its own.
Oh, yeah.
So how does that happen?
So, truly blessed, my Chinese laser cutter. Truly blessed. That helps a lot with adding fine detail. Be it the etching or things like that. The scales on the sword specifically, I glued a piece of craft foam, I got a scale pattern, I cut out the scale pattern on some wood so it wouldn't fall through the cracks per se, and then while the glue was still wet and it was just cut, I just applied it to the weapon. A lot of detailing on weapons is not difficult, it just takes some active thought. It's a lot of like costume design knowledge of like, how would this work? What would this look like? Where does this wear? Where is it weathered? If it has hardware on it, like if you're putting a strap on something, how's that strap attached? Like add something that it attaches, like make it look like a rivet, make it look like something. Everything needs some form of reason, and it can't just float there without rhyme or reason. I'll see a lot of props with just like metal band. Well, how is that metal band on there? Like, there's no rivet point. It's just a little plate that's sitting there. Like, even when I add like plates and stuff, I make sure the corners have like little circles so it looks like rivets, and then I'll paint it a little differently. It's just, I mean, you're playing Legos as far as like stacking up little details. And it's really useful to just think of those kind of as you go. You can start out with a fully realized concept, but I find I never really do. I'll have the thing and be like, yes, I should add. So it's a building process.
What is like we're almost out of time, but out of curiosity, what advice would you give to people who are wanting to make props of their own? Take
your time and don't be afraid to fail. You will.
Don't be afraid to do the dumb.
Don't be afraid to do the dumb.
It all ties in together.
Bring it back, baby. But yeah, a lot of people are really intimidated by investing money into materials and things like that. Thank God foam, not that expensive, especially if you're going with the Harbor Freight stuff. I mean, I don't use Harbor Freight stuff anymore, but that was a great starting point. It's inexpensive, and if I screw up, oh no. I get 4 sheets for $10. So yeah, don't be afraid to fail. Practice. Watch your videos, watch your references. Give me a ring, I don't mind. But yeah, that would be my biggest point. My other one is the thing I don't practice as much as I should, which is safety. If you're using contact cement, barge, DAP, don't care, respirator, or well-ventilated area. Spray paint, well-ventilated area. I cut the crap out of my pinky the other day. It was a good time. Don't recommend it. It was right before Twin Mask. Safety. Always watch that blade if you're using a power tool. Never look away. I don't care how cute she is if she's texting you. Don't look away from the blade. But yeah, those would be my firm advices. And yeah, as Ryan said, we're kind of running out of time. You're welcome to find me, Tobias McCurry, on Facebook. I've got a fan page. And then I also have springhieldstudios.com, which has all my information, my email, and things like that. So if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Cool. And this is your host, Ryan Omega.
Oh, I like him.
Huh?
Ryan Omega's great.
Yay! And you could find me on various social media. You could find me on Instagram under Ryan Omega. You could find me on Twitter under Ryan OMGA. You could find me on The Scabby Rooster doing various shows, including Blank Slate. And I'm also a professor at Aether House Academy, where I play the crazy alchemy professor, Calvin Morgenstern.
I was invited to do some stuff over at Scabby Rooster.
Oh.
I might have to see you soon, right?
Oh, yes. That may be a thing. And even though we're in Seattle, like
I'll be back in LA before you know it.
I guarantee it. Anyways, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
And until next time, bye.
Bye.